just a gentrified neighborhood. It has become an extremely affluent neighborhood.
Can we have time cards?
It has one of the highest per capita incomes of any neighborhood in New York City. The housing prices are sky high.
Really?
The stores and restaurants are...
Do you own yours, or?
No, we don't.
So you're protected at least on your rents, aren't you?
Yeah. We're fine. Our situation is fine. We'll be there.
You're in an apartment house or a brownstone?
It's in a brownstone.
Okay. 30 seconds,
and it's
okay. Liss. The name of the program is The Way to Go. I invite you to join me each week as we explore places to go and things to do. We're really going to explore today. My guest today is a man who was on the program not too long ago, and at that time he said that he was coming out with a new edition of his book, which is called The Architectural Guidebook to New York City. He's Francis Marrone, and he's a tour guide. He's a writer on architecture. He's deals with a lot of things. And Francis, welcome back to The Way to Go.
Thank you.
The book is incredible, and I'm so glad that you came with a new edition and updated it, added Brooklyn sections on it. One of my favorite places. I started my first walking tour in Brooklyn Heights, so kind of have my own affection for that. But let's get down to it. I enjoy architecture. I enjoy architecture in New York City. What is the best way to see architecture, to enjoy architecture in New York?
On foot. It can vary. Sometimes having a guide with you in a formal walking tour, like the ones offered by the Municipal Art Society, good serious tours with educated guides, sometimes that can be the best way, because the guides can point out things to you that you might not notice on your own, even if you have a book with you. A guide in person is always able to tell you so much more than any book is able to tell you. On the other hand, sometimes there's not as much serendipity involved if you're with a guide. If you're on your own, sometimes you can discover things spontaneously.
You never know what's around the next corner or at the second level.
And that's the glory of any big city, of New York or a London or a Paris, is that you're always happening upon things you didn't know were there. I mean, I've been looking closely at New York architecture for over 20 years, yet hardly a day goes by that I don't notice something that I never noticed before, and I'm amazed by it. But I would also say that this is my own bias, but that's what my book is about, my own biases. I would say that the best way to appreciate the architecture of New York is to train yourself to filter out the bad, to filter out the new.
What do you mean by filter out?
Well, one way of doing this is by looking up as much as you can. This is something that I tell everybody who's visiting New York for the first time, and I think that this goes for other cities as well. When you're walking the streets of Manhattan or of Brooklyn, look above the ground floor of buildings, second story on up, because those are generally, with the older buildings, the parts that have not been modernized, that have not been destroyed over time. And you just see marvelous stuff up above, ornament, that has been stripped away from the store levels.
And not only on the second and third floors, but really up to the top sometimes, because it amazes me sometimes when I look at a building and I see the intricate work that's way up there on the 10th or 12th floor, cornice work, and you wonder, why did the architect and the builder, the client really of the architect, put that decoration up there where actually people hardly ever see it?
That's true, but there are a number of reasons why they do that. Architects once had a greater recognition, I think, that the buildings are viewed from many different locations and angles. So many New Yorkers live or work on the upper floors of buildings, and what you see out the window of an upper floor is as much a part of your daily life as what you're seeing from ground level when you're walking from one building to another.
Good point.
So that's one reason why you'll have ornament up above. Another thing is that the ornament up above used to balance the ornament down below. And people once, without even knowing that they were conditioned to look at buildings or appreciate buildings in a certain way, just sort of automatically, almost instinctively knew that whatever ornament was at the street level was going to have some kind of corresponding ornament up above. And people would look for that. People are no longer conditioned to look at buildings in the same way that they used to. The whole sense of beauty and form as being a necessary element of people's daily lives is something which has fallen totally by the wayside in the last 50 years.
But you say look above the ground floor, look up. Look for what?
Look for whatever is there, because it's going to be fascinating. You're going to find mainly ornament, but the forms of the buildings also. An example, a building that I write about in the book, the old Tiffany jewelry store on 5th Avenue and 37th Street. Everybody knows the Tiffany's on 5th and 57th. That building, however, wasn't built until 1940, and Tiffany's, of course, is one of New York's ancient retailers.
Yes.
They've been around since the early 19th century, and they've occupied many different buildings successively in New York. But in 1906, they hired the man whom I regard as New York's greatest architect of all time, Stanford White, to design for them a magnificent palatial store on the corner of 5th Avenue and 37th Street. That building is easily one of the 10 most beautiful buildings in New York. It still stands, yet people walk past it every single day without paying it the least bit of attention. And that's because when Tiffany's moved out of that store, the ground floor was completely, quote, modernized. And this occurred in the 1960s. This was sometime after Tiffany moved out of the store, but in the 60s, the ground floor was modernized. It was destroyed. It's just a banal, plain ground floor that there's no reason to look at twice. There's a building, however, if you look up above, you are instantly transported back to 5th Avenue in 1906, when that street was at the height of its elegance, its grandeur, and your head almost swims with these visions of what New York once was like.
You talk about stores and where they used to be. The Ladies' Mile section, of course, on 6th Avenue, which still has these huge buildings, which were really the center of shopping in New York, and then went into disrepair and now have all come back.
Yes, they have.
Happily for you?
I would say so. Now, there's a great deal of controversy about the manner in which they've come back, because the area was rezoned under Mayor Giuliani in order to accommodate these large suburban-style superstores. And there's a very vocal contingent of people in Manhattan who are opposed to allowing these types of retailers onto the streets of New York City. Their arguments are well taken, but without getting into that, I think that it's a wonderful thing that those buildings are back in service as retail, at least at their lower levels, first, second stories, as retail facilities. Because once again, even though they're nowhere near as elegant as they once were. I mean, Siegel Cooper, which was once a byword for department store.
Now, what are we talking about? 6th Avenue between?
It's between 18th and 19th is the Siegel Cooper store. It's on the east side of the street. It occupies the entire block. A massive and extremely ornate structure which once was the largest department store in the world. It was built there in 1896, and just as Macy's would later claim, we're the world's largest store, Siegel Cooper made that same claim. That's where Bed Bath & Beyond now is, if I may mention
Sure.
their name. And of course, Bed Bath & Beyond is a perfectly fine establishment, but it's not the old Sequel Cooper store. Nonetheless, it's a store once again, and you can still get some sense of the space, what it was like.
But all the stores in there, below 19th Street and all the way down to, 17th, 18th, they're store after store after store. And even on 23rd Street, where
Yes,
was
indeed.
that? Lord and Taylor was, what was around the corner?
Stern Brothers,
Stern
their old
Brothers.
store. They also once claimed to be the largest store in the world. Their store is right on 23rd Street.
Magnificent
and,
white building.
yes, beautiful building with a cast iron facade.
Talking about cast iron, someone told me that they always, in New York, always walk around with a magnet in their pocket to check whether those buildings are really cast iron or stone, as they make out to be. The whole cast iron district is great, and there's so much to see and so much to appreciate.
That's true. I think that started with a woman named Margot Gale, a remarkable woman who did more than any other person to preserve the cast iron architecture of Soho. And back in the early days of that movement, she and the students whom she was working with, they first had to go out and inventory all the cast iron buildings and then research them and come up with all the pertinent information about them. And they, in order to identify the cast iron from the stone, frequently they had to. Sometimes you can tell with the naked eye if there's rust. Obviously, it's iron; it's not stone. But sometimes, if you couldn't tell, the magnet was the only way.
Right. Of course, the books have been written about cast iron, and she used to write the Then and Now column in the Daily News, the Sunday
right.
News magazine, and she's, I guess, the grand dame of New York architecture right now.
She is, indeed.
Well, let's get back to your book, and I think we ought to maybe show your book. At the cover, of course, sets the style right there with a beautiful picture. What building is that?
It's the Chrysler Building in the distance there. Many, many people's favorite building in New York.
Mine included.
Yours included. It's one of mine, though I don't think it's at the very top. And one of the very interesting things about the Chrysler Building, and this is something that I go into a bit in the book, is that the building was always a popular success. Today, it's both a popular and a critical success, although when it was first built, the critics were very harsh. The critics thought that it was a silly building, that it was kitsch, that it was a piece of sort of overblown PR, if you will, for the Chrysler Corporation.
Looking like hubcaps, right?
Yes, exactly, and not to be taken seriously as a work of architecture. And you'll find this attitude all the way down to the 1970s. What the historians would consider serious architecture would be Mies van der Rohe's Seagram building on Park Avenue, a very austere bronze and steel building. But the Chrysler Building, critics have come around, and
I love to see it in the skyline. You're driving up at night and you see the Chrysler Building. It's lit beautifully, as the Empire State is, and of course, so many other buildings today are lit at night. It's a great sight. We have to talk about your book. The fact is that you got hundreds of entries in it. This is a new edition that's just come out. You approach architecture not only from an architectural viewpoint, but from a historical viewpoint, the culture. What I like about the book, there are many books that have written about New York City and buildings in New York, is that it's so conversational. It's kind of flowing. If people are listening to you now, that's the way you sound in this book. It's something that's very easy to take, and I suppose that's your style. It just flows out of you. Where does all this information come from? You've been doing this now for 20 years in New York. How do you absorb all this information? You do a lot of research?
Yes, there is a lot of research involved. However, I grew up in a very architecturally rich environment. I was born in Chicago. I spent my teenage years in a town outside of Chicago called Oak Park, Illinois, famous for its wealth of houses designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And as a result, I was impressed by architecture at a very early age, and began to look seriously at buildings. at a very early age. In fact, my best friend from the 5th grade onward and we would actually save up our money and we would buy books on Chicago architecture, and we would walk around with these books and look at the great buildings in the Chicago Loop and so forth. This friend of mine happens to be the photographer for this book, so we're still doing the same thing now. I won't say how many years later, but quite a few.
It's interesting that your earlier interests, and he's an architectural photographer, of
Yes.
course. So you went into yours the spoken word, his is the photograph, but you're both into the architectural field, and it's you can. How do you use the book though? Do you read it from cover to cover? I open it up and I glance and I read, and some things I know about and some things I don't know about. But there are other ways. I suppose it's something to carry in your car whenever you drive in New York, because it's done by areas.
Yes.
That was an interesting approach. You could do it by street, you could do it by type, and you've done it by type too. You have an index for specialists in it too, which I thought was interesting. How does that work?
Well, there are, I think, basically two different kinds of architectural guidebook. There's one which has only recently gone out of print, sadly, called the AIA Guide to New York City. I don't regard my book as being in any way competition for that book. They're two entirely different kinds of books. But the AIA Guide does, however. It's a much more encyclopedic kind of book than mine. It lists and identifies a great many more buildings than mine does. So if you're going through a given neighborhood and you see a building and you want to know what is that building, chances are the AIA Guide will tell you. Chances are my book won't, because I only write about 600 buildings or so in my book. That may sound like a lot to people, but compared with the number of buildings in New York City, that's an infinitesimal number. So what my book attempts to do is to go on at greater length about the buildings that I talk about, in the hopes that I can inspire people to look at buildings. Not necessarily in a particular way, but just to think about the qualities of buildings and the different ways that buildings appeal to us emotionally, aesthetically. And in a way, it's kind of a primer, I think, a book that may help people to appreciate buildings on their own.
I think it's more than a primer, because despite I have a great knowledge about buildings in New York, you've given me some insights which I just didn't have from anywhere else. I want to go on a little bit about the book and also about how the best way to go around and see things. But first, I do want to remind our viewers that we're talking about this wonderful book, The Architectural Guidebook to New York City, and the author, new edition, just updated, Francis Marrone. I travel in Manhattan a lot by car, and I like to look at buildings and then stop when I see something interesting. I know, of course, since we first met on a walking tour that you did for the Municipal Art Society, that, you know, I do go on quite a few walking tours, and they have a chance to see things more intensely. What is the best way? Someone is interested in New York, someone is interested in architecture, someone is interested in looking above the ground floor. What is the best way to see New York? Is it take a section and aside from going on a tour? What's the best way, Francis?
Take a section. Decide if you have a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon that today I'm going to go look at Chelsea.
Turn to the chapter on Chelsea.
Turn to the chapter on Chelsea. Maybe bring the book with you.
Yes, certainly bring the book with you.
Take the subway or drive to Chelsea. Get off and walk around. Just walk around the neighborhood. Books such as mine will help you to spot some of the more significant buildings, will tell you what is significant about these buildings, but then, in addition to that, take what you've learned from that and, on your own, apply it to some of the other things that you're seeing. A given neighborhood like Chelsea, I can introduce you to Chelsea, I can tell you something about certain buildings in Chelsea, but even in that one area, there's just so much more than could possibly be encompassed in a guidebook. You could write a book that length just about any one neighborhood, in Manhattan, and walk around. It's Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's only possible to do this kind of walking around on Saturdays and Sundays. The reason I say unfortunately is that another one of the great glories of New York are interior spaces, which, like upper stories of buildings, sometimes you'll find amazingly intact lobbies and so forth. Everybody knows when you travel abroad, for example, if you see an interesting church, go inside. That holds for New York, too. If you see an interesting church and it happens to be open, go inside. But also go inside skyscrapers, office building lobbies. Go inside
the Woolworth
banks.
building, for example.
The Woolworth building. And this isn't just for Manhattan, right here in downtown White Plains. There are, just wandering around on Main Street, I've gone into several building lobbies that are just spectacular, and that's that's a tip that I give people all
That's
the time.
a very good point.
Go inside.
Go inside. There's more to it than just the exterior and the ground level.
Absolutely.
We do want to point out that the book is published by Gibbs Smith, and that, of course, it's available in bookstores everywhere, and certainly on the internet, on Amazon, and also Barnes & Noble. So,
Yes, indeed.
And if anybody really wants any information, there's an 800 number you can call, which is the Gibbs Smith number. You get more information about the book and its availability. 800-748-5439. 800-748-5439. We'll put that up in the closing credits as well. Let's go be specific a little bit. Some of your favorites, some of the most interesting places. You've touched on a few of them. Let's give some insight into the book.
My favorite places in New York,
Sure.
My favorite buildings. I would have to say, and maybe this is a conventional view, but there are certain buildings in New York, particularly from the early years of this century, although some that are older, that are just so big and so complex, they're almost like cities unto themselves. Just as I was saying about New York earlier, that you find things every day that surprise you. There are some buildings in New York where no matter how many times you go into that building or use it, you still find things. Grand Central Terminal. I give often the free Wednesday afternoon walking tours for the Municipal Art Society of Grand Central Terminal. It is just a fascinating building. The New York Public Library, St. Patrick's Cathedral, Central Park. Not a building, but a work of architecture nonetheless. Sure. The other thing about some of these is that right now, as we speak, we're in, people may not realize it, but it's kind of a golden age.
Why is that?
Of building restoration and renovation.
Why? In
New York. Well, beginning in the 1980s, a tremendous amount of work was done on the New York Public Library. And currently, its greatest space, the main reading room, is closed for restoration. But when that reopens next year, it will be an event of great significance for lovers of the city's architecture. Grand Central Terminal is undergoing a huge restoration and renovation undertaken by the architects Beyer Blinder Bell, and a lot of that is completed already, and people who every day you go to Grand Central, you just look around and you're in awe.
And the commuters who rush through Grand Central Terminal and know that something's going on, but they don't see what you see.
Well,
and they can.
I think that when it's all done, when everything is back in place, when the scaffolding is out of the way and the construction noises have died down, I think they're going to think that they're in heaven. That's how good a building Grand Central is, and when it's in its utmost state of upkeep and maintenance and restoration, it will just be a joy to behold. And I don't think anybody will be able to not sense that, no matter how fast they're rushing through that concourse. Central Park, another excellent example of the work that's been done on Central Park. There's no project like that in the world today that has been as extensive or as successful as what's been done by the Central Park Conservancy in Central Park.
Now you talk about really the best way to go is to go with someone who really knows walking tours, and you do several walking tours. You do them, of course, Municipal Art Society. When you do a walking tour, where does the information come from? You've got the book, you've got your own interests, you've got people who tell you things. Is it planned? Do you say, well, this is exactly, is it a script that you follow, or is it just an outpouring of information?
No. What I do is when I put together a tour, I do research it. If it's a tour that I haven't done before, or even if it is one that I've done before, I do research it. I own a very large library of books on New York. I probably have about 1,000 books about New York in my own personal library. By consulting those books, by marshaling things that are already in the back of my mind, I'm able to put together something, and I usually put it together as a series of notes, but after that, that's just sort of a way of kind of like forming it in my mind. I never refer to the notes when I give a tour.
I noticed that.
I just, I just start talking, and I don't even sit down and memorize dates, because when I need them, they're there.
Yes.
Dates are important to me. I know that a lot of people get bored by dates, but I think it's really fascinating to know what came first, what came second.
Yes.
What was
It does
happening
give
at the
a
same
feeling.
time that this was built.
Well, I think the book is so full of that. The Architectural Guidebook to New York City. I do have an extensive library of my own. This, to me, provides something that no other book that I have does, and I think for that reason it's a great asset. And I think you have to do that. As you said, the AIA book is excellent, but this is different, and this does a different aspect. It's not as extensive, but it certainly covers everything beautifully, and I think that's a marvelous job that you've done. And I clearly recommend to people that they buy this book, and we've told them where to do it. I'm so glad you came here today that we could talk about the book and talk about the work that you do. And you're always welcome to come to the show and talk about New York City, which everybody knows I enjoy. We've been talking today about the Architectural Guidebook to New York City, and the author, Francis Marrone, is my guest. He knows architecture in New York like nobody else I know. It's a great book. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'm Norman Liss. The name of the program is The Way to Go. Until next week at this time, enjoy yourself.